select record. Okay, so for those of you that are new, this group does have 3 meeting sessions a week. You can attend any of them or all of them if you like. Each session goes over the next material in the chapter. We're on chapter 6 right now. So each session will go over a new section. We also, if these times are not convenient for you and you'd like to watch the video, they are on the YouTube channel, usually about an hour after the meeting. They're up on the YouTube channel. YouTube is really wonderfully easy to use that way. And we welcome for you to participate as much as you would be interested in. So tonight, we are continuing on chapter 6, which is entitled The Lessons of Love. It really means the Holy Spirit teaches lessons of love. And we will find out next week what those lessons are. We'll do the latter portion of chapter 6, which are the 3 lessons that the Holy Spirit introduces. Tonight, specifically, we're going to do 2 sections that are very short and begin with section 3. It's 4 paragraphs long, and then move on to section 5, the first portion, which is also another 4 paragraphs. So we're not covering many words, but I think you'll find the ideas are very powerful and meaningful, hopefully in many ways, to you. And our reader tonight is Julie C. from Virginia. And as always, Julie, we thank you for your service to the group and your willingness to step up to help us.
Thank you, my pleasure. As we have already emphasized, every idea begins in the mind of the thinker. Therefore, what extends from the mind is still in it, and from what it extends, it knows itself. The word knows is correct here, because the Holy Spirit still holds knowledge safe in your mind through his impartial perception. By attacking nothing, he presents no barrier to the communication of God. Therefore, being is never threatened. Your godlike mind can never be defiled. The ego never was and never will be part of it, but through the ego, you can hear and teach and learn what is not true. You have taught yourself to believe that you are not what you are. You cannot teach what you have not learned, and what you teach, you strengthen in yourself because you are sharing it. Every lesson you teach, you are learning.
Mm-hmm.
That is why you must teach only one lesson.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so such a powerful beginning right here already. And we want to make sure that we're all, because we're just starting this out, on the same page and we understand what we're reading here. This first sentence is one of the principles of this program. And so it's really important that you understand that in this program, the idea is whatever thoughts you have in your mind that you then witness to out in the world, you see it happening in the world, that thought is still in your mind. So a simple example of this might be, let's say you're out in the world and you see 2 people interacting with one another, and you notice how kind and sweet they are with each other. And you say to yourself, oh, how kind and lovely that is. Well, that thought of kindness and loving interaction is still in your mind. It's a idea, and we'll later find out that these ideas become potent in the way we view life and relationships and the world. Similarly, but more on the dark side, if you see two people interacting and you say to one of them, oh, how cruel that person is. Now the idea of cruelty is in your mind and you're reinforcing that. This is the fundamental idea in the course, that whatever thoughts are in your mind, you will then project them outward into the world, and that will be the way you will see the world. We refer to this as a way of teaching, meaning, let's say I believe that people are basically good and I'm looking for the good in them, then I will go about my life looking for good, and I will therefore see good and witness it, and therefore I will be teaching that the world is good. And in the process of looking for it, I'll convince myself that the world is good. And here's the assertion that you might have to take on faith at the moment. We assert that all human beings are doing this all the time. It's you make an evaluation of your situation, but the evaluation is your evaluation, and it's the way you choose to see the world. So the power of this insight, this is an insight, is that you are teaching what you have learned. And the power of this is, if you see the world through fear and doubt and hopelessness, you can change your mind. You can choose to see the world through love and certainty and hope. It's two different thought systems, and you decide which one you want to participate in. Now, the details of making that transition are elaborated throughout this course. We're not saying just like that, you change, but we are saying that this is a part of a spiritual journey, that the Holy Spirit already realizes that you can be a powerful witness to love. It says here, the Holy Spirit holds this knowledge safe in your mind. And so the Holy Spirit already sees you as what you truly are, your holy, beautiful, perfect self, and waits patiently until you're willing to let go of all your past judgments so that you can adopt her way of understanding for yourself. So, and in that way, you will come to know yourself as a loving being, a representative of love, a messenger of love, one who has come to this world to extend love to others. So, you must learn to teach only one lesson. Teach only love. Do not teach hate. Do not teach resentment. Do not teach judgment, guilt, pain, fear, loss, despair. Teach only love. That will be one of our central themes that we'll be covering throughout the rest of the course. Noel? Noel, you're muted. Go ahead.
Would this mean then that however our major outlook is, we're attracted to people who are embodying that. Like if we believe everyone is good, our attention goes to people who are being wonderful to each other, and vice versa.
It does mean that. And even in perhaps an extreme case, perhaps you're involved in prison ministry. You go into the prisons to work with the inmates there. You look for the best in them, and you believe in the best in them, and you witness to it, and it calls it forth in them. So yes, that's what it means. I found this to be true. I've done quite a bit of teaching of young children. This is very easy to see in children. If you believe in them before they believe in themselves, you can have an influence on them that eventually they come to see themselves in a greater light than they did initially. I've witnessed this many times. I know this to be.
There are famous studies that show that. Not only young children, but older children.
All, children of all ages, just like us. All right, let's go on. So we're always teaching all the time. Question is, what lessons are you going to teach?
That is why you must teach only one lesson. If you are to be conflict-free yourself, you must learn only from the Holy Spirit and teach only by him. You are only love, but when you deny this, you make what you are something you must learn to remember. I said before that the message of the crucifixion was, teach only love, for that is what you are. This is the one lesson that is perfectly unified because it is the only lesson that is one. Only by teaching it can you learn it. As you teach, so will you learn. If that is true, and it is true indeed, do not forget that what you teach is teaching you. And what you project or extend, you believe.
Mm-hmm. So if you're taking notes, this is central. What you teach is teaching you. It will, what you represent yourself to be in this world will teach you, will give you further understanding and certainty of the awareness of who you truly are. Now, this has two sides of this coin, because you can teach yourself that you are unworthy and hopeless, or you can adopt the Holy Spirit's teachings that you are only love, that you are worthy of love, and so is everybody else, and that you have every reason to be hopeful and happy. So there's a choice here. And this entire program is to help you shift out of the old teaching system of being unworthy of love, of lacking love, and into the Holy Spirit's new perception that all beings are worthy of love, that we were created in love and by love and for love, and therefore are lovable. So in order to do that, we're going to talk about a vision. This will be done throughout A Course in Miracles, referring not to the way you perceive your life and yourself and the world in this very moment, but a vision. Call it further down in your spiritual journey if you want. Think of it for a moment as further away in time, your future spiritual self. It's a vision of what you are becoming. And here's the vision. You must teach only one lesson if you are to be free of conflict within your own self. And you must learn only from the Holy Spirit and teach only by him. What does that mean? Is that you represent love and you teach only love. You withdraw your thoughts and attention, feelings and behaviors completely from the dark side, which is full of fear and guilt and despair and lack of love. You withdraw all power and faith from that system and choose. And this takes a while to be 100% committed. Remember, this is a vision of furthering your spiritual journey, and eventually become totally committed to teaching only love. And this course will gently bring you along, so to speak, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, gently bring you along the path from wherever you all find yourself today to wherever the Holy Spirit can take you forward to in the next, let's say the next year. Really, I would think the next 3 months. So there's a vision. Where will you be on your spiritual journey 3 months from now? Well, if you're willing to let the Holy Spirit guide you, she already has a plan for you. The Holy Spirit has done this 1,000,000 times and is glad to offer you guidance, illumination, and understanding on your spiritual journey. She knows exactly what's in front of you spiritually for you to grow, and only ask that you be willing to open yourself to gladly receive her guidance, and at the same time to let go of control of the past and letting that lesson be your guide. Say that once again. Let go of past learning as your guide and gladly and willingly receive the Holy Spirit's teachings and lessons for today. So do not forget that what you teach is teaching you, and you will come to believe whatever it is that you are representing here in life, and the way you represent yourself to life, you will come to believe that that's what life is about, whether it be full of hope or full of despair. We'll go on.
The only safety lies in extending the Holy Spirit, because as you see his gentleness in others, your own mind perceives itself as totally harmless. Once it can accept this fully, it sees no need to protect itself. The protection of God then dawns upon it, assuring it that it is perfectly safe forever. The perfectly safe are wholly benign. They bless because they know that they are blessed. Without anxiety, the mind is wholly kind, and because it extends beneficence, it is beneficent. Safety is the complete relinquishment of attack. No compromise is possible in this. Teach attack in any form, and you have learned it, and it will hurt you. Yet this learning is not immortal, and you can unlearn it by not teaching it.
So the title of this section that we're reading is The Relinquishment of Attack. And we just read that safety is a complete relinquishment of attack. We need to understand the idea. What are they talking about? Attack. Whose attack are they talking about? we are not limiting ourselves to physical attack. That's not the main focus here. What we're talking about is the way you perceive yourself moving through life. And so I want to back up for a minute, and our starting point would be the dark side, where the mind is afraid and the mind feels like there's a limited amount of love in life and I don't have a full share of it, and I have anxiety and great concerns, and I feel threatened by the life itself, by the world, by them, whoever them is, an undefined them. And therefore, being threatened, I need to defend myself, to protect myself. It's the great lie of the ego that defending yourself is your first survival instinct. And the ego then goes on to teach that the best form of defense is to attack first. And it starts this with the belief in your mind. Nothing physically has happened yet. These are all just a narrative about what it's like to be deeply afraid and feel unsafe and threatened. And so the attack begins with the mind. And you may have done this already in the last week. So this is not abnormal. This is not infrequent or uncommon. It would be in the form of anyone you find fault with, anyone you condemn or complain about, or maybe you see them as unworthy, not your equal, or there's a reverse form of that where you see them as better than you and you are yourself as less than them. That's an attack on yourself. All these are just dark beliefs of the mind. And the ego believes that it can be safe only by attacking first. So that's what we're looking to withdraw from, to depart from that insanity that I just explained. We're not endorsing that in any way. And how do we do that? And it's right here in this paragraph. It's to recognize that the only safety, in real safety for our being, lies in a relationship with the Holy Spirit, in allowing her worldview, her perception to become our own. And as you invite the Holy Spirit's perception in, the gentleness that you will begin to feel a sense of harmlessness and gentleness that you also will recognize in others. And in recognizing it in others, you'll begin to perceive it's true of yourself as well. That which you teach, you will believe is true of you. It's a sense of, if others are gentle, then I too must be gentle and harmless. This is the complete opposite of the teachings of the ego, that you must attack first in order to protect yourself. And this has many layers. As a matter of fact, I'll go far as to say this is a preview of chapters to come. The entire system of beliefs that the ego has arranged in thought is about a type of psychological armature. It's a way, an illusory way of trying to protect you but in so doing, it separates you from love. It puts you in warfare mode, conflict mode. And the dismantling of that armature, which is a psychological orientation, is one of the major working areas that we have to deal with in order to be free in this course. We have to confront psychological armature defense mechanisms head on and see that there is no safety in remaining armored against everybody, that the only safety exists is within the mind of the Holy Spirit. So that's a big work process for which the workbook lessons and future chapters will address in detail. We're making just a quick pass by right here. We're not completely diving into how you would do it, but eventually we'll learn that in your defenselessness, your safety lies, and only there are you safe. Everyone needs, let's say it one more way, within your being, within your soul, there is a quiet place, a resting place where you are perfectly safe and can be content and at peace. And everyone needs to learn to access that. It's an ability you will learn in this course. And until then, people will seek for other means of safety outside in the world. And this course will teach you to disarm the armature of the ego and learn to feel at peace and safe within. Here it's referred to the protection of God can dawn upon your mind, assuring that it is perfectly safe forever. And this changes everything. When you feel safe and have relinquished attack, now you can see the good wherever it is, because that's the only thing you have an investment in. That's your only interest is in, it says, the perfectly safe are wholly benign. There's only an interest in that. There's only an interest in blessing. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of us because we're talking about the vision right now. We're not talking about the starting point, but we will take you, this program will take you through these steps one at a time. Right now, the starting point is that teaching attack, that teaching that judgment and condemnation and complaining and conflict with other people must be relinquished. And you can unlearn that teaching by not teaching it. You can unlearn the psychological habit of attacking with your mind the world and others in the world by not practicing it. Simply let it go. It's easy to say, right? Simply let it go. Noel?
It seems to me also that belief has a big role in this. I can use the terms almost interchangeably. What I believe, I will teach. What I teach, I believe. What I believe, I project. So all the aggregate of beliefs of the ego, to me, is what has to be attacked. Maybe that's the
or relinquished.
Relinquished. Thank you.
Yes. You're so right, Noel. In fact, we'll go this far to say every belief of the ego, every belief that buried in your mind, even if you haven't thought about it for years, but you still cling to it because you believed it once, every belief that was based on fear needs to be relinquished before we can see ourselves as totally harmless, as being perfectly safe and wholly benign. So that would be the vision. We're not going to get to that full, complete state in one step. It's a journey of many steps, but the most important thing is that we're in the right direction, that each day we take a step in the right direction. An amazing thing, 3 months from now, amazing things can happen to you if you take a step each day in the right direction. All right, we have one more paragraph in this section, then we're gonna go on to the next.
Jonica, there was a question in the chat. I didn't
Yeah.
want to assume that you didn't see it.
So I tell you what, let's read this and then we'll come back to that question. Please remind me. Thank you, Julie.
Since you cannot not teach, your salvation lies in teaching the exact opposite of everything the ego believes. This is how you will learn the truth that will set you free and will keep you free as others learn it of you. The only way to have peace is to teach peace. By teaching peace, you must learn it yourself, because you cannot teach what you still dissociate. Only thus can you win back the knowledge that you threw away. An idea that you share, you must have. It awakens in your mind through the conviction of teaching it. Everything you teach, you are learning. Teach only love and learn that love is yours and you are love.
Mm-hmm. So this affirms what we said a moment ago after Noel's comment. We said that every belief that we acquired under the ego. So we're going to learn to teach the exact opposite of everything the ego believes. So now you know what is on the menu of A Course in Miracles, to teach the exact opposite of everything the ego believes, which stated positively is to teach only what the Holy Spirit teaches. I find that to be a more lovely way, is we're finding a new teacher and we're going to be completely trusting of the Holy Spirit's teaching. And so what will be the consequence of this if we do it? We will have inner peace because the conflict within ourselves would have been dissipated, let go of, and we will feel that resting place within ourselves, and our life becomes a demonstration that we have found a place of rest within. I called it in the previous paragraph, the protection of God. It's a safe place within your own being. And so we will learn to teach peace. This is the second lesson of the Holy Spirit, which we'll cover next week. And in the process of seeing yourself in that context of being leading a peaceful life and teaching others, you will learn it. You will grow in the conviction of it. The power of your faith and your mind will be applied towards that direction now. And it will awaken in your mind a conviction. It's a wonderful thing. It's a powerful thing. It will give new meaning to your life, a conviction. So that, and then your life becomes this was referred to in some of the comments we had right before class with Merva and Sandra. Life becomes a teaching learning journey. We're constantly, even though we might read the same paragraph a year later, we've changed in that amount of time, and we can now understand in a new light. So we become happy learners, where we are both living our lives and learning at the same time and representing, and then other people are impacted by this as well. So our slogan becomes teach only love, and learn that love is yours and you are loved. Teach only, the short version of this is teach only love, because that is what you are. Okay, so we've got a couple side comments here, or comments coming through on the chat. I want to read one that B submitted a moment ago. Should we avoid the people who are harmful? Or if we're not to avoid them, how should we handle people that are harmful? And so I'm going to respond to that question, but remain exclusively within A Course in Miracles, so that we're only using that as our reference point. So there's two sides of this. One is you have to have healthy boundaries. So let's say you're raising young children, and there's maybe a family member or a neighbor or somebody else who is known to have risky behavior, maybe plays with knives or all. You need to be practical and say, hey, we can't have around my young children people playing with knives. That would be absurd to just say, oh, it's all fine and lovely. So there's a sense of recognition of healthy boundaries, and we cannot fully explore that topic in even 1 hour. That's a workshop material of how to recognize and set healthy boundaries. But the Course does teach that as your fears fall away, you learn to recognize a new sense of what are boundaries and where are healthy boundaries. And so on that side, we do need to be practical. Some situations we don't want to put our children or ourselves into. Now I want to talk about the other side of that, which is because B's question is about people that are hurtful. So let's say the form of their hurt is that they say mean things about you. And I'm going to use an example where it happens to be your sister. All right. So does the Course in Miracles say that you should avoid your sister because she's hurtful to you? No, clearly not. As a matter of fact, the Course would reinterpret that situation to in terms such as this. It's your sister. It's your life and your situation. And this is a learning opportunity for you. This is a teaching learning journey. We're not saying this will be easy, but this person is in your life for a reason. And in many ways, they can be the impetus for you to pray every day for them, for forgiveness. I have seen it with Course in Miracles students time and again, and I'm talking about sisters and brothers and spouses, where it was very hurtful emotionally and psychologically, and the other person prayed for them in and out and endured patiently, sometimes for many years. And then there was a breakthrough. And all of a sudden, two people who are family members care about one another again and are connecting and talking and reunited in the kind of family bond that you would hope to see. And so for both members, that's a situation in which we can learn from. There's a lesson in the workbook called in all situations, there is a lesson God would have me learn. So I can't tell you, B, or anybody else, when to pull away and when to remain engaged. Only the Holy Spirit has that wisdom. But know that decisions have to be made in life. And sometimes the right decision will be to pray every day for that person. And sometimes the decision will be to pack your kids up in the car and go to another playground. Metaphorically, to remove yourself from the situation before it gets more inflamed. Okay, so I have one more topic that we're going to cover before we begin section 6.5. And this is based on a question that B asked. And by the way, B, thank you for your questions. They really are helpful and clarifying. Yesterday in section 6.2, it focused a great deal on abilities. And B asked the question, well, what about talents and abilities? How are talents and abilities similar or different in A Course in Miracles? We don't mean in the dictionary, we mean in A Course in Miracles. Well, so I promised to get back to everybody. Turns out that talents were given to us all by the Creator. These are how the words are used in A Course in Miracles, okay? Talents are given to you by the Creator, and when we all return back to oneness, everyone will have, all talents will be shared by all of the sons of God when time is over, when everyone is returned to heaven. So there are talents in heaven, and everyone shares in them equally in heaven. Question then becomes, what about on earth? Because that was really what the question was about. What is about talents on earth? Well, people on earth, as you know, vary in their display of talents and abilities. It turns out that, and the Course again and again will refer to talents as natural talents. They are gifts that are given to you, not because you're special, but because they are innate to your being. And it refers to a talent for miracles, a talent for protecting others. Remember, we talked about feeling safe and being at peace, and a talent for the mind to extend and come to know itself. This is what we mean by teaching and learning. The mind feels peace within and it extends that peace outward. And in the process, it learns that I am a peaceful being and that my function here is to teach peace. So talents are a wonderful thing. Now let's talk about abilities. It's a subtle difference, and it begins with where do abilities come from? How did they get started? Well, it turns out the course teaches abilities were introduced by the ego. For what reason? So it could show you that I'm better than the rest of you. The ego introduced abilities so it could distinguish itself as better than. So that's how it started. That's how they were introduced. Now, the Holy Spirit can take everything that the ego uses and reinterpret it, give it a new purpose, deflect it to a new goal. So the Holy Spirit is able to repurpose your abilities in order not to reinforce the ego, but to free you from the ego. And the examples that we used yesterday of abilities that can be used this way is ability to let go of fearful thoughts that you've made, the ability to forgive yourself and others, the ability to train your mind to stay in that, find that place of peace within you and to linger there. It's an ability that you can learn. It's a form of healing. It brings peace and allows you to represent peace. Here's the big difference between talents and abilities. When you're finished this program, when you've totally forgiven yourself, life, God, and everybody included in it, you no longer need those abilities. You're done with them. Abilities are only used in time in your learning journey, whereas talents go on forever. So that might have been more than most of you wanted to know, but the pattern in this is the same that we're going to find everywhere. And the pattern is this: there are gifts that come from heaven that are a part of your spiritual being, but they are also a part of everyone else. They make us, we share in them. That would be the talents. There are also attributes that the ego has introduced so that it could be competitive and aggressive and get more for itself. And those skills, the Holy Spirit has an amazing ability to know how to take those skills and redeploy them for good. I'll give one simple example. Let's say a person throughout their life has been very greedy with money and dedicated to do anything they can to enrich themselves at whatever cost. And they really developed those skills to become wealthy, even if it meant they had to tread on other people. Well, the Holy Spirit, if the person is willing to learn from the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit has the ability to redeploy those skills for good. And you could see how a person who knows how to make a lot of money could then employ those funds for the good of others, to help others, like to help people get through school and help them with their health care in many different ways. The Holy Spirit knows how to gently alter the course of one's life and move from a sense of isolation and separation to a sense of joining and union with the good of humanity. All right, so that's talents and abilities. I've really said more than I intended to say on all that. Apologize for being long-winded. We're going to go on to the last section for tonight, which is the introduction into section 6.5. This will set us up for next week, because this is all about 3 lessons that the Holy Spirit teaches to everyone. And we will cover them next week. We're preparing ourselves because remember, we just learned, teach only 1 lesson. Teach only love, for that is what you are. These are the Holy Spirit's teachings. Well, we're going to elaborate on how you would do those things in these 3 lessons. So we'll do the introduction tonight, but we're only going to cover 4 paragraphs. We'll do the rest next week. Julie, thank you for your help.
Like any good teacher, the Holy Spirit knows more than you do now, but he teaches only to make you equal with him. You had already taught yourself wrongly, having believed what was not true. You did not believe in your own perfection. Would God teach you that you had made a split mind when he knows your mind only as whole? What God does know is that his communication channels are not open to him, so that he cannot impart his joy and know that his children are wholly joyous. Giving his joy is an ongoing process, not in time, but in eternity. God's extending outward, though not his completeness, is blocked when the sonship does not communicate with him as one. So he thought, my children sleep and must be awakened.
And the Holy Spirit becomes the caller or the messenger to help us awaken. And so the principle that I like to highlight here is that the Holy Spirit knows you are perfect now. The Holy Spirit knows that you were created by a loving creator, and that the essence of your being is love, and it's eternal and perfect. She knows that now of you, but it would be safe to say that you don't know that about yourself, or at least not fully believe in that, because there's another part of your mind that is in opposition to that message. And so the goal of the Holy Spirit is to teach you so that you become equal with the Holy Spirit in understanding these things about love, perfection, eternity, your innocence, your inner peace. She wants to teach you all that she knows about these matters. And this program has one big request, and that is that you be willing to accept her guidance and teaching. You are free to reject it. The ego will plead with you to reject the Holy Spirit's teachings. I'm confident those thoughts will, from one time or another, cross your mind to want to steer your own ship in your own direction, the way you would have it be, that thought the ego will sponsor, but the Holy Spirit will not abandon you. She will wait patiently until you come around to deciding that a path of peace and love is the one that you really want. Okay. Go on.
How can you wake children in a more kindly way than by a gentle voice that will not frighten them, but will merely remind them that the night is over and the light has come? You do not inform them that the nightmares that frightened them so badly are not real, because children believe in magic. You merely reassure them that they are safe now. Then you train them to recognize the difference between sleeping and waking, so they will understand they need not be afraid of dreams. And so when bad dreams come, they will themselves call on the light to dispel them.
Everything in Course in Miracles is written about you. So when we say, how can you wake children in a more kindly way? Who are the children that need to be awakened kindly? We all are, not just people in this meeting. All of us are. And so the starting point is us that are confused and have, as we've talked about before, a set of beliefs and a set of teachings that tell us our safety lies in protecting ourselves and building up armature, and that it would be better to attack first rather than wait to be attacked. All that is a part of a thought system that we cannot be shaken from abruptly, but there must be a kind and gentle way of waking us so that we don't become further afraid. And so the beginning of this program is this: you train them to recognize the difference between a nightmare and the light. You train them to recognize the difference from a fearful thought, which the ego fabricates, and a sense of safety and peace. I find it shocking and amazing that we as human beings don't innately know this difference. In fact, later on, we'll show that we as human beings have learned to love the fear and fear the love. Well, that's just the upside down. That's the exact opposite of what you would want. And so we don't recognize the difference between the two, and therefore are deeply confused regarding the nature of fearful thoughts and feelings versus loving thoughts and feelings. So we're going to learn, and the Holy Spirit's going to teach us. This lesson cannot be bypassed. You cannot skip over this lesson and continue to make progress in this course. You must recognize your own thoughts and feelings when they arise to make a distinction. And so, can I come back for a moment? I will go back to a moment to B's question. Should we avoid her question was, should we avoid the people who are hurtful to us? I'm going to reinterpret that question is, should we avoid our thoughts that are hurtful to us? Yes, we need to be trained to recognize the difference between our own thoughts and feelings that hurt us. And this reinterpretation that we just did will be the center starting point of this course. Is first we have to get our own training of our mind in order before we can interact in a new healthy way with the world. So we must learn, we will call this mind watching, mind training, setting healthy mental boundaries, and it's a part of a training. Very few people go through any of this training outside of the Course in Miracles. And I'm not saying there's no one, but many people go through their entire life without learning to recognize the difference between fear and love. So we have a couple comments. Let's take one from Heidi.
Wouldn't the best and most simple way of getting over those thoughts be by forgiving ourselves for having those thoughts?
Yes, that is certainly part of it, Heidi. Certainly part of it. It's forgiving yourself, but it's also stopping the practice. So let's say the message I got from my childhood is really, I'm not a very lovable person. You know, nobody's ever going to love me. Well, I can forgive myself for that, but I really need to withdraw all faith and belief from that lie in order for it to stop hurting me.
Right. But if I have that feeling about myself that I'm not worthy enough, then obviously it came from somebody, just say my mother.
Somewhere.
Is by forgiving my mother gonna do it? I mean, what I've gotten from the course so far is that before you can love, you need to forgive.
Yes.
So I need to forgive those who put those thoughts, who created those thoughts.
Yeah. So I hear where you're coming. This is the is it me or is it them question. And we will learn, Heidi, that forgiveness needs to go all around. You need to forgive yourself for carrying those thoughts with you all these years. And you need to also forgive the one that you have pinned it on that started it. Forgiveness needs to be total, not limited in any way.
And so it really, truly doesn't come from my mother. It
Right.
comes from my ego making it up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, your mom might have said the words at one point.
Right.
And
but
then
my ego allowed it in.
Right. And then you stored it in your mind for decades of time and kept recalling it without doing anything about it. So ultimately the work has to be done within. And the way you view your mom will be a part of that.
Thank you.
Noelle?
The second paragraph, I reinterpret it. Then you, the Holy Spirit, train me to recognize the difference between the sleeping thoughts of the ego and the waking or woke thoughts of God
Yes,
So I will understand I need not be afraid of the ego.
yes. Very good, Noel, very good. Now, I want to point out what Noel just did. She took the words and without changing the meaning, she altered a few words to fit a frame of reference that made it personal. And this is to be encouraged. In fact, the workbook lessons will encourage you to do this very thing with the workbook lessons, to not shift the meaning, but to reinterpret it in a way that fits a language that you can accept and understand. And so this is one of the things we're going to learn, is to take ideas and relanguage them, not to change the direction, but to repackage them in a way that is suitable to the occasion. Matter of fact, in order for you to be able to teach peace to other people, you're going to have to repackage the idea in a way that is suitable to the person that you're speaking to. Kathy, we talked about this a lot, about learning to speak in terms that your listener can appreciate. Did you have something else, Heidi?
Yeah, I wanted to ask too, as far as I don't sleep at night. So when I get 2 hours of sleep, instead of being angry and tense and, pissed off, I really love my ego. And I thank the Holy Spirit for giving me 2 hours instead of being angry and feeding into the ego. So the more we love the ego, the less it will affect us, correct?
Well, I want to answer with respect to Course in Miracles. Your ego does not love you. And any attempt to love your ego is probably not a good investment of your love.
So don't kill it with kindness.
Don't kill it. Just walk away. It really is, Heidi, a withdrawal of your faith from the entire messaging system of the ego. So it's just like, hey, literally, I've heard this before and I don't want to hear it again. I'm moving on to the Holy Spirit. Without doing any battle or judgment or struggling or analysis or narrative, just, I don't want to hear it. So that's a learning. This is about recognizing the difference between the ego's narrative, learning to recognize it, and then immediately making a choice to embrace a different narrative, the interpretation of the Holy Spirit. And we have to learn to do that. So Heidi, this is central, to learn to recognize and to make that choice. We're going over it in theory right now, but the practice of that is something that it will come. Workbook lessons are the way of taking it in a day-by-day approach.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on.
A wise teacher teaches through approach, not avoidance. He does not emphasize what you must avoid to escape from harm, but what you need to learn to have joy. Consider the fear and confusion a child would experience if he were told, "Do not do this because it will hurt you and make you unsafe. But if you do that instead, you will escape from harm and be safe." And then words, "and then you will not be afraid." It is surely better to use only 3 words. Do only that. This simple statement is perfectly clear, easily understood, and very easily remembered.
I think I just experienced a miracle or an insight in this very moment. And it had to do with B's question earlier. Should we avoid the people who are hurtful? And I didn't know what was about to come. Well, what does it say? What does A Course in Miracles teach? What it teaches is that a wise teacher teaches through approach, not avoidance, and does not emphasize what you must avoid to escape from harm. Do you see how this relates to her question? I mean, it's almost a direct answer. It does not emphasize what you have to avoid, but it does emphasize what you need to learn to have joy. And so this is the case where I talked about like a sister that you may have had okay, I'm telling somebody else's story here, where they'll remain anonymous, 10-year fight where they don't talk to one another. And there's actually one of the students who's not present tonight. It was 20 years of prayer, and the woman was practicing Course in Miracles and praying for her sister. And all of a sudden, after 20 years of prayer, a phone call was remade, and now they talk every week. So you do need to emphasize what needs to be learned to have joy. And in this case, it was praying for her sister. And it wasn't, I won't say those feelings were easy because it went on for 20 years, but it was never giving up on the hope of reconciliation with her sister. And so it was about, what do you need to learn to have joy? She knew she needed to be reconciled with her sister, that she could not live in happiness and joy and have this enmity between them. So, yes, this program will emphasize approach, not avoidance. And I need to hear this message because I don't want to talk about myself, but I started this program when I was 21. And by the time I was 24, I was still practicing it. And I wanted to leave the world and all its hell and go live on an ashram. I wanted to withdraw to some community that lived in peace, where everybody was in a spiritual community and everybody loved everybody, and avoid the clash of egos out there. And I realized that I was kind of that I was not in a good place, and so I set A Course in Miracles aside for a while so I could regain my sense of bearings about participating in life and in the world. So a wise teacher teaches through approach, not avoidance. But the tendency to avoid, if you're practicing peace, there is an impulse that may arise within you to just walk away from it all and leave it there. And that is not what the Course in Miracles teaches, because that doesn't heal anything. To walk away, what the Course teaches is to engage and pray be hopeful of healing of yourself and others. And this is not an easy lesson, as I think everyone realizes. This, in the case of the one person I was just mentioning with her sister, it was a 20-year journey. And now they talk several times a week. Amazing. All right, we're going to wrap up here.
The Holy Spirit never itemizes errors because he does not frighten children. And those who lack wisdom are children. Yet he always answers their call, and his dependability makes them more certain. Children do confuse fantasy and reality, and they are frightened because they do not recognize the difference. The Holy Spirit makes no distinction among dreams. He merely shines them away. His light is always the call to awaken whatever you have been dreaming. Nothing lasting lies in dreams, and the Holy Spirit, shining with the light from God himself, speaks only for what lasts forever.
It does worth mentioning here when we refer to dreams, we're talking about ego illusions that flow through your mind and your thoughts and your feelings while you're wide awake and believe you're living in hell. That's a dark dream. That's an example of a very dark dream. Or you're wide awake and believing that nobody loves you or that you're unlovable. That's a dark dream. When we refer to dreams, we're talking about the things that you know what we're talking about because attention has been lost in those dreams. You must have been dreaming. And to emphasize the point we read just 2 paragraphs ago, children who haven't learned these things get confused between these dark dreams and the truth of reality, the light of the Holy Spirit. They're confused, and they wind up giving the faith of their own mind to the dark dreams, and this will cause you to be afraid. This is the source of fear, is your own mind endorses a set of thoughts and feelings that are generated by the ego. And so this is also the major learning. I'm responsible for the contents of my mind. If I continue to hold in mind and reinforce a set of beliefs, it's there because I did it. I'm responsible. In the example that Heidi said, if her mother taught her something, berated her as a child, and she's carried it with her all her life, it's Heidi's responsibility to make the decision to let it go. Mother can't do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. And so we need to learn to undo this confusion. The Holy Spirit will teach us. And so the basics here is we need to learn the difference between light and darkness, between love and fear. And for those of you who've been studying the course longer, we need to learn the difference between when our mind is co-creating with the Holy Spirit versus when our mind is miscreating with the ego. And until we learn that difference, we're confused, and we'll go about repeating the same mistakes again and again, and our mistakes will frighten us. So not to end on that note, but nothing, dreams do not, here's the big difference between the ego's dreams and the Holy Spirit's illumination. The ego's dreams will not last. No one has ever gotten out of this world and taken their ego dreams with them. The ego dreams will not last. The Holy Spirit's light points us to permanence of being. It points us to stability and safety and peace in an amazing way. It actually points us back to where we all began. And in many ways, it is true. This program is about your returning back to your awareness of love. And that will last. That's what the Holy Spirit speaks of, and that's what will last forever. So that's as far as we're going to go tonight, but you can see that we've really set ourselves up for what is to come in the 3 lessons of the Holy Spirit. So I know that not everybody's able to attend all the sessions, but do please read them by yourself, or if you're have the time, watch the videos on YouTube after they've been posted so that you get a grounding. This is like your compass for this program. Get a grounding of these 3 lessons of the Holy Spirit to the point where the meaning, here's one thing I can assure you of, the meaning is much deeper than you will realize at first. At first, it might seem like a bunch of words that perhaps don't make a whole lot of immediate sense, or said the lessons of the Holy Spirit make no sense to the ego whatsoever. But as the Holy Spirit has a vision for you of where you are going, and along the way, these lessons will continue to unfold. This is what Merva and Sandra were saying earlier. Every year seems like I understand more than what I did the previous year. That can be said of these lessons here. And so I hope that you can join us for that. Thank you, Julie, for reading, for filling in tonight. Thank you all for your attention. I know these are transformative messages that come through the Course in Miracles. There's no doubt that they are the exact opposite of the teachings of what the ego believes. And so it requires great willingness on our parts to stay in there when we're receiving such radically transforming ideas. There is nothing else like A Course in Miracles. And so I'm honored to be on this path along with you, because we are all learning and teaching together. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Namaste.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace and love.
Good night.